Welcome to episode 32 of Blackhawks Banter, brought to you by the Hockey Writers. Thank you for tuning in, whether you're watching across your favorite social platform or listening on your preferred podcast provider. My name is Shaun Filippelli, and I'll be this week's host. Rounding out our panel is Boysen Gail Kauchuk, and Brooke LoFurno. How's everyone doing?
Great.
Good.
Doing good.
Good. Our show is brought to you by thehockeywriters.com, where you can find all of our Blackhawk content and league-wide coverage, including other shows just like ours. We also encourage you to follow and engage across Twitter. You can find our handles below right in this area for each of us. And obviously, Chicago is on the outside of these playoffs looking in, but that doesn't mean we're short on Blackhawks-related topics to discuss and debate. So let's get right into it. Some good news out of Chicago recently. Lukas Reichel, who has been making headlines throughout the city ever since his first-round selection of the 2020 NHL entry draft, has just signed his entry-level contract with the club. So I'm going to position a scenario to you. It's opening night, he is in the lineup, and it's up to you to set him up for success. Which position do you have him playing? Who are his line mates? And what are you expecting out of his debut performance? Greg, we're going to start with you.
I think I'm going to put him at center because, I mean, that's why you draft a kid like that in the first round. I know he plays center and wing in Germany, but center is what you want to grow him at. You want to be strong down the middle. And your first temptation is to start him off in between Kane and DeBrincat, but you may want to hold off on that a bit. Center is the hardest position to play defensively, for a young player. So you may want to ease him in, maybe put him in there with a couple of wingers that are more responsible defensively. Let him ease into that and get comfortable playing without the puck. Because the more comfortable he is without the puck, the more comfortable he's going to be with the puck because he's going to think less. And the worst thing a young hockey player and even an old hockey player's worst enemy is between his ears. When you think, you usually screw up. So you want to ease him in. I'd love to see him centering Kane and DeBrincat, but that might be a little disastrous defensively right off the bat. So let's get him playing defense first and then see what he can do when he does have the puck.
Fair enough. So starting him at center. Gail, do you have him at center on the wing, and who's playing around him?
Well, I know he has played center, but his natural position, or what he did play more of, his wing. And like Greg was saying, it definitely would be an easier place to start. Shaun, in your recent piece that you did about the World Championship, I know that when you were highlighting Reichel, you mentioned assistant GM and player development, Mark Eaton, described his quote, seeing that Reichel sees things faster and better than most other players. So who does that remind you of? Patrick Kane. And so I think that Patrick Kane and Reichel could definitely develop some chemistry together. But again, the defensive side of things, could Doc as their center, kind of make up for some of those deficiencies? Maybe. And then I just recently saw where Reichel signed, they showed a picture of him, and man, he really needs to add on some weight. If he's going to compete in the NHL, youngster, I mean, obviously he's got to put some weight on there. So maybe it's a little bit too soon to have him up there with Doc and Kane. But if I'm one of the coaches in training camp, definitely check that out. Consider it.
Yeah, no, good points. Moving over to the wing. Brooke, is he staying on the wing with you, going in center, and who's playing on his sides?
Center for sure, because I don't know if we're going to get a center in like this off season. So I'd say center. And I said, put him between Hagel and Vinny, or Brandon Hagel and Vinny Nostroza, because that seems like maybe that'd be a good line for him. But I don't know. This is confusing because, again, this whole roster is kind of a big question mark. We don't know who's going to be here, but I would say third line center for sure. I wouldn't want to start him like on top first because they need to get like acclimated and stuff. But my expectations for him aren't really too high to start. I'm not going to do that to him. Like, I'm excited to see him, but I'm not going to say, oh my gosh, I hope he comes out with 30 goals and whatever, because he does have to get acclimated, but I'm sure he can do it pretty fast. Most of our European prospects have been able to do that. So like I said, I'm not expecting him to start off really hot, but I am expecting him to show reliability, like flashes of potential as a good forward and center. So that's what I think of him. And like I said, third line center for me.
Yeah, definitely. We're all expecting big things out of him. I mean, whether that happens right away or not is yet to be seen. But, my take is going to amalgamate sort of everything you've all said. To me, I want to ease him in as well. I don't want to set him up to fail. I want to set him up to gain confidence, not lose it. So I'm also thinking second, third line. I'm with Gail. I want to put him back on the wing. He has more experience there, and I want him to be, again, as comfortable as possible when he does get his feet wet on North American ice. He's still 19 years old. We have to remember that too. So, Greg mentioned putting him alongside Kane. How fun would that be? And I agree, but I don't want to start him there. I want to put him. I still want to put him around sort of the youth that are in the mix, but at the same time have some more experience. So to me, I'm thinking get him on a line, get him on the left side, DeBrincat's on the right side, and put Doc in the middle, because at least there's a nice combination there of youth where DeBrincat can make up and compensate for maybe what Reichel might be lacking, help him show the way a little bit. And at the same time, we're expecting a lot of the Doc, and he has to start to take over this team anyway. So to me, Doc, DeBrincat, Reichel, let's see it. Second, third line and see what they can do. Speaking of signings, it's clearly no secret that the turmoil between the Buffalo Sabres and Jack Eichel continues to grow, with a trade seeming imminent. So I want to put to you, would you want to see Eichel playing with the Blackhawks? And if so, who are you willing to part with to make that happen? Gail?
All right, it's funny because last week Brooke actually brought this up a little bit, and she said, what kind of package would you put together to make Kirby Dach expendable? And I said, give us Reichel. And I kind of said that tongue in cheek. But I think, because I do think that it would take parting with somebody like Dach in order to get Reichel, or Eichel, sorry. We just talked about Eichel. And I know he's unhappy in Buffalo, but he also he's under contract for $10 million for the next 5 years. So that's a tough salary, and that's a lot of money and a lot of term, whereas, Dach is $925,000 for the next season. Obviously, he is a restricted free agent and is going to, command a big raise, but is it going to be $10 million for the next 5 years? I doubt it. So I guess my point is that it's fun talking about Eichel, but it's a lot easier said than done. And of course, that's just one scenario. So I'll pass it on to someone else to see what they might think.
Brooke, do you want to see Eichel in a Blackhawks uniform, or just avoid it altogether?
Actually, I got really excited when I heard this question, because yes, 1,000 times yes. I don't think we're talking about a franchise-altering player here besides Patrick Kane, and I don't know, like we said, if Taze is going to be back, we hope so. But again, there's so many question marks. So honestly, we can't keep wasting Kane. We need someone that can help immediately. He fills a lot of holes: scoring, power play. I think he could do penalty kill too, and face-offs, most importantly. So I'm all aboard that train. If you can get him, yes. If Tampa and Vegas can keep figuring out how to maneuver the salary cap, we should be able to do it too. So I don't think anyone should be off the table at this point. I mean, do you look at our team and think, holy cow, we cannot live without any of these people? So I don't think anyone should be off the table. I would offer anyone, honestly, that they want, to be honest. I would offer that first round pick, that number 11 pick. I would even maybe offer Kirby for that, to be honest with you. So I'm all about it. If that can happen, absolutely.
Fair enough. Greg, are you as excited, or are you thinking we should avoid this player at all costs?
Would I like to see Jack Eichel in a Blackhawks uniform? Absolutely. Am I willing to give up what it's going to take to get him? No freaking way. Not when you are a rebuilding team. You cannot give up, and it's going to take Kirby Dach and probably one of the young defensemen, an Adam Boquist or Bodine, and a whole buttload of draft picks. First rounder, at least one. It's not worth it, because if you take away Kirby Dach and Adam Boquist and then those possible future assets and just replace with Jack Eichel, you're no better off than you are right now. You're still struggling. This is a team that needs to build for the future. And if you make this trade and you give away all these assets, by the time, if you ever get good again, Jack Eichel's going to be past his prime. You're wasting his prime. We talk about wasting Kane, would be wasting Jack Eichel too. Jack Eichel, if he's getting traded, he's going to a team that is a Jack Eichel away from the Stanley Cup, which unfortunately is not the Blackhawks. You're going to open up 5 other holes to plug one. It doesn't make any sense right now. He's going to go to a team that can risk 2 or 3 years of their future to win a Stanley Cup this coming up year, or the year, like a team like the 2013 or 2015 Blackhawks were. they're not in a position to trade. It makes zero sense for a rebuilding team because you don't have the pieces to put around him, and you don't have then the assets to build around him because you gave up too much for him. And then the whole salary cap too. You're just going to end up seeing other talented young players have to walk because you have to pay that Eichel contract. So as much as I want to see him in a Blackhawks sweater, it doesn't make any sense. I don't see how they can make it work.
Yeah, listen, great points. I'm going to take sort of the opposite approach, though, and sort of touch on everything you just did, Greg, because I agree the salary cap implications are in and of their own world as far as what would need to happen for the Blackhawks to find the financial freedom to even bring on an Eichel contract. But as far as giving away young assets, I definitely, if I haven't made it clear already, want to see Eichel in a Blackhawk uniform. But I don't know how many young assets they'd have to give right now. I mean, in years prior, I think his price might have been higher, but it feels like Buffalo is also at a point where they just want to rid of this drama themselves. So it kind of feels like he might be, I don't want to say undervalued, like he'll be a steal, but I feel like now is probably the prime for the picking, so to speak, where you might be able to get away with a deal that you wouldn't have been able to in years past. So, I don't know who's going to get it done. You guys mentioned great players that will probably be necessary, but at the same time, if Buffalo's getting a little more desperate and just want to rid of this cancer on their team and move on from him, the reality too is that he's still only 24. So, I agree that he's getting into his prime, but there's years ahead of him. And what excites me most is just thinking about an all-American line, Kane, Eichel, DeBrincat, like what a line. So it just, when I thought of that, and I thought of the all-American theming, I was like, this has to happen for that reason alone. Even up here in Canada, I'd love to see that kind of a line put together because they would be dangerous. I don't necessarily know what it would take either. Obviously, you're looking at some potential assets, but even a guy like Pius Suter, throw him into the mix. I know he's only on an entry-level contract, but he's also 24. You're replacing the same age. You're replacing a guy who can play center, and maybe he can grow with the Sabres. So obviously it would take more than that, but I definitely would like to see Eichel in a Blackhawk uniform if the price is right. So I'm a little more contingent.
Well, I think that also because we saw at the deadline that it really didn't take much for Buffalo to send Taylor Hall. So I'm starting to think actually the price might not be that bad.
That's kind of what I mean, right? Like they might be in a position right now where they're a little more willing to negotiate and sort of seeing where their needs lie, and can you scatter some people around to fill those gaps and just be rid of that contract and rid of that player.
Well, you also have to consider though that not necessarily just the 1 or 2 or 3 players you have to give up now to get them, but you have to think about 2-3 years from now, the players that you're going to let walk for nothing because you can't afford to bring them. If the salary cap is staying flat, Brendan Hagel doesn't get a new contract because we're paying. And then granted, Eichel is better than Brendan Hagel, but if you're going to have to let 4 or 5 of these young guys go over the next 2 years to keep them, it's just not worth it to me.
Yeah, you need the complementary pieces too.
Yeah, definitely.
One line, it's the playoffs. We know one line doesn't win a Stanley Cup. You got to have, yes, that all-American line would be awesome. The other 3 lines would be terrible. So let's just keep the course.
Yeah, no, you definitely don't want to deplete your roster. That wouldn't make any sense, especially during a rebuild. Expanding on impact players, let's talk a little bit about Brandon Hagel. A recent write-up on the Blackhawks official site broke down Brandon Hagel's impressive rookie season, outlining the work ethic and character that made it possible. Having accumulated 24 points and 59 hits, playing nearly 14 minutes per night through 52 contests last year, what are you expecting out of Hagel next year? Greg, I'm going to start with you.
I don't think we should see much of a difference, to be honest, as far as like a point per game percentage. The way he plays, he's got a high motor, high energy. He's fearless. He's going to produce points because of the way he plays. So I don't see that changing much. You might actually see maybe a dip, or I should say an increase early on, because if you remember last season, it took him a little while to get that scoring touch. He missed out. We were wondering, when's he going to score? And he finally did, and he got that confidence, and the goals came. So he's going to start the year with the confidence that he can score at this level. But you also have to worry about maybe March, February, March, because he's never played an 82-game season before, just like a lot of these guys on this team. So it's going to be interesting to see when you get to those quote-unquote dog days later in the season, if he can keep that production off. So to summarize, I think he'll be about the same as far as a point-per-game average.
Yeah, fair points. Gail, is he going to do better, worse, kind of exactly what we saw out of him this past season?
Well, I kind of took this question as like more of like a where's he going to fit into the lineup? And I guess I was thinking, with Tays hopefully coming back, with Doc being healthy, with Alex Nylander hopefully in the mix, and we talked last week about Henrik Borgstrom and Lukas Reichel. That's a lot of skilled players. So I don't necessarily see Hagel being in the top 6 like he kind of was this year based upon, need and his energy and all that he brought. But I definitely think that he could be just an integral piece of, a third line or the bottom 6. You put the right players around him. That's a dangerous threat. His tenacity, his energy, hopefully they would be a scoring threat as well. We all know that a successful team, needs to have 4 lines rolling. And I think that Hagel is going to help make that happen.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly the hope, and he proved that he can. So we'll see if he can do it into next season. Brooke, where do you see Hagel as far as production goes, and even where he fits in the lineup next year?
Exactly where he is. I know he was kind of like up and down also with the first and second, but I still think of him as a third and fourth line player. So that's where I would see him. But I really hope, kind of like Reichel, that the Blackhawk fans aren't going to put way too much pressure on him to do exactly what he did last season, because I do think he will be exactly like last season, but I hope they're not like expecting like huge numbers for him or whatever. But he's great at exactly what he does, which is digging pucks out of the corners. He's good at being that feisty little playmaker. So honestly, I'm kind of expecting a lot of the same from him. I'm not really expecting a whole lot more, because what he does right now is completely great, and that's exactly what this team needs. So I just think, about the same.
Yeah, it's funny. I think we have a consensus on the panel here that in any other case, you might always be looking for growth and progress and players to perform better. But I'm of the exact same opinion. To me, we should expect to see exactly out of Hagel what we have, and I'm totally okay with that, because what he showed us is probably more than most of us expected out of this prospect. So if he can still keep doing that for years to come, then we're in good hands with him on that roster. I agree. Perhaps he doesn't fit in a top 6 role, but I sort of have a feeling that there's going to be a little more responsibility thrown on him. But I think he's going to be able to handle it. I think his passion and his work ethic, which is what was outlined in that article, really touched on his drive and his perseverance. And I feel like that's just a great ingredient to infuse into this lineup, especially at a rebuilding stage where that's going to rub off on the players around him. So, agreed across the board. I don't expect much more production, maybe a half a point per game pace. And I'll be totally okay with that, because the reality is I think his passion and impact is what is going to drive his value through the roof, because he'll continue to grow in that respect alone. And that's something that Hawks can really look forward to.
Although I do hope that he's working on his scoring over the summer here, because for as many chances as he generates and gets, if he could finish more often, that could be really dangerous.
Well, listen, I mean, you're right, but he's young. First year in the league, wasn't really even expected to have that many minutes or that many games. So I agree with you. And I think that's a good problem to have at this point, where if that's what we're hoping he works on, he's probably well ahead of schedule as far as where he could have been, during this offseason. So certainly work on that shot and score more goals. But I think there's still a lot of positives out of what we saw last year, and I think we all agree.
He definitely had a case of the Victor Stahlbergs last year.
I'm okay with it, though.
First year, we're excited.
Yeah, I'm okay
We're all
with it.
excited
He'll
about
be
it.
fine.
Oh, yeah. And again, his work ethic alone, it makes him valuable. Friendly Mitchell reminder to subscribe and follow so you never miss an episode. The Hockey Writers is also home to a variety of other shows just like this one, covering every angle of the league. Be sure to check them all out. Speaking of current Blackhawks, let's flip gears a little bit and talk about former Blackhawks. The Stanley Cup semifinals are now underway with a variety of Blackhawk connections throughout every remaining roster. So what I want to know is, which former Hawk do you expect to be the biggest difference maker for their team this round? Brooke.
Nick Leddy. And I kind of said this because he's a defenseman that's won a Stanley Cup, and for the Islanders, they don't have that much experience. So someone like him is definitely invaluable this time of year. And when I was watching the game 1 against Tampa, he actually had a very good game. He was getting pucks on net. He was doing great defensively. So I think if they advance, he'll be a big part. Play a big part in that. And I think he'll have a really positive impact on this team, because he already has.
Yeah, good pick. I miss Leddy. Greg, who do you miss the most in this capacity and is going to have the biggest impact here?
Well, Leddy's a good pick, because defense is going to win that series if the Islanders have a chance, and it's going to be the same in the Other series, Vegas and Montreal. So I'm going to go with Phil Deneau. I don't know if he's going to have the biggest impact, but the Canadiens are going to need him to have a huge impact and do what he does best, and that's play shutdown defense. They're going to need Carey Price to stand on his head, and they're going to need to rely on Deneau to play his defense and shut down the top line of Vegas and keep them, at bay. So if Deneau is the most impactful player of that series for Montreal, then they stand a chance.
Yeah, well said, Gail. I know you just wrote an article, and everyone can find it on the hockeywriters.com that outlined the players that are still in the playoffs. So of those that you touched on, who do you think is going to have the biggest impact this round?
Yeah, I have to agree with Greg. I went with Denault for my answer for this as well. He did such a great job of shutting down the opponents in his first 2 rounds, but the Golden Knights are a whole different animal. They are a deep team, and it's going to be tough, and he's going to have to do his best. And while he's at it, he probably needs to, pick up the production a little bit. He's only recorded 2 assists in 11 playoff games, and of course, it can't be him doing everything. But do I think that Denault and company is going to beat the Vegas powerhouse? Probably not, but it sure would be fun to see them, give them a run for their money, and I'm rooting for the underdog here.
Yeah, solid picks, both Deneau and Leddy. I miss them both in a Blackhawk uniform, like I'm sure we collectively do. I'm going to take things on the other side of that Montreal series, and although a small sample size, and it seems like I've become a bigger fan on this show than I probably really am, but I'm going to go with Mattias Janmark, and the reason is this is a player who was in the final last year. He's shown he can show up and he can perform and he can be creative and he can be relied on. He's spread out his production so far this postseason. He has 7 points in 10 games, I believe. But on one given night, he scored a hat trick. All 3 goals came in one night, which might not sound like a good thing, but I mean that obviously means he's dangerous with the puck. He's shooting at, I believe, a staggering like 27% right now, and that's clearly not sustainable. But it shows he's dangerous with the puck. And to me, the biggest wild card here is, Leddy's going to go up against the best offensive talent. Deneau's got to shut down the best offensive talent. Janmark's going to slip into like a bottom 6 role here and play against players that might not be as strong because the rest of that energy is going against the other team's best players. So I think Janmark can really swoop in, as the other Vegas stars are being focused on and fixated on and do his thing. So there's going to be another hat trick type performance. It might come from a Janmark in this particular series.
I think Shaun has a big old man crush on Janmark. He brought him up like 3 times last 3 shows.
Bring him back. That's all I want. Bring him back.
I was going to say we have another agent on our staff. Gail is the agent for David Kampf. And
you're going to be paying him $6 million to come back to
he's
the
auditioning to be Janmark's agent.
Whoever does become the biggest impact, obviously, is going to help their team move on in hopes of winning a cup. That team will have plenty of reasons to celebrate, just like the Hawks and their fans did last decade. 2010 was obviously a special decade for all of us, let alone the franchise. In our preview post, I asked each of you which Stanley Cup year was your favorite to celebrate on a personal level, and I asked you to create a headline that encapsulated that memory, starting with your title and explaining from there, which cup did you pick? Gail?
Okay, this makes me excited and makes me want to go back. I chose 2013, 17 seconds. So with this season, let's just start at the beginning. Shortened season. You knew right off the bat the Blackhawks were going to be something special. They went on their run. I think it was 24-game win streak. Then they went and won the President's Trophy. They in the playoffs, Minnesota 5 games, no problem there. And oh my gosh, that 7-game series with Detroit. We thought it was over. They were down 3-1, but came back and Game 7 and Hossa and all that overtime thing. They were on a roll. Got past the LA Kings, even though double overtime in Game 5, but there's the drama there. And then of course, Boston Bruins, you got, I think it was triple overtime, a couple overtime games. You get to Game 6 and you've got your 2 goals in 17 seconds to win it. You got Bickle scoring that goal. But I think the thing that really did it for me with 2013 was the fact that, Bickle scored and they tied it, and it was a couple minutes left in the game, and so they put their 4th line out there of Dave Bolin, Marcus Kruger, and Michael Frolik, And basically they're just supposed to hold down the fort and get them to overtime, but no, they scored, And so I just think it's so awesome. And to me, that kind of encapsulates the underdog mentality. And, I'm always saying that. So that's why 2013 was my favorite of the three.
Listen, that's a great pick. Obviously, all three of them are. I'm going to add to your story and just say that 2013 was a funny year for me because that's not my pick, but I just want to touch on this with the 17 seconds. Talk about retribution as a fan of two different teams, obviously with the Leafs and Hawks being my two, as I've mentioned on the show. That was the first year of a monumental collapse that Leafs Nation has felt coming, losing from 3-1, being up against the Bruins. So to see it come full circle and the Bruins be on the wrong end of it was extremely satisfying for me as a
It's
Black.
always awesome when you beat the Bruins,
Yeah. Brooke, where are you going? What's your title and what's your memory?
Oh, Gail, you brought back some fun memories. I remember that because when they had scored the first goal, we were all celebrating. And then the 17 seconds later, our neighbors were like, they scored. And we were like, yeah, we know. And they're like, no, we scored again. So that was fun. But no, my pick was 2015. And I said overcoming the Preds because I remember that so clearly, thinking we even had a hard time with the Preds back then. And I actually was really worried we wouldn't be able to get out of that first round as deep as we were. And then Scott Darling had to take over and it was just kind of a mess. And then Shea Weber got hurt. And that was really unfortunate because obviously such a great player, but then it kind of worked to our advantage. And so I actually was stuck thinking if Shea Weber was in this series, would we really have won? So it was kind of more like, that's just the circumstances that were handed to us, but I'm so glad we were able to defeat them because like I said, I did not know if we would be able to. So that's one that really sticks out to me. And that's kind of what sealed our Stanley Cup fate, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great memory too. Greg, we have one for 2013, one for 2015. Are you sticking with 10 or where are you going?
I also picked 2015, and my title for that was It Comes Full Circle. They're all very special. 2010, somebody who grew up going to the old Chicago Stadium in the mid 80s and seeing games and then living through those miserable late 90s, 2000, early 2000s. It was something you never thought you were going to see. 2013 was great for me because I had press credentials through a site I ran at the time. And that was when I really got into and decided that I want to, use the game to become, my full-time way of making, a living. And I learned so much, but 2015 on a personal level was so special because I was there for that game. I had season tickets from 2007 to 2017. So be able to see it in person, that was like the one thing left, like that was to do it. But it was also a special night because I was there with my mom and my sister was in the building too in different seats. So kind of being with the family, seeing that, and my mom, my parents were season ticket holders in the 70s, and that they went to on dates. They went to Hawks games on dates before they were even married. And my dad passed away in 2013, and my mom had a little vial on her necklace that had a little bit of my dad's ashes.
Oh.
All of us were there that night, so that was a real special moment. And I'm almost getting choked up talking about it. So that's, and being in that building that night and the feeling in there was just something I'll never forget. To be able to enjoy it as a fan, not there covering a game. And it kind of was the perfect ending to, as we now unfortunately know, that championship run. That was the last really great moment. So hopefully we get to experience that again.
Yeah, I mean, wonderful memories, wonderful stories all around. You really can't go wrong with any of these, but I'll be the outlier here. And my title is 2010 Kissing the Cup. So by the time they won the cup in 2010, my wife and I had been dating for almost a year there, and I pulled her over onto the Blackhawk bandwagon, and she's been following ever since. We both grown up playing hockey. We're both hockey players, hockey fans, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we got to celebrate and watch the whole way through. Obviously, the start of what would then become a dynasty, which we wouldn't have been able to foresee. So that was kind of cool to look back and see that was the start of it all. And obviously, our relationship blossomed into where we are now. But the memory itself, for me, is an interesting one because I'm gonna speed right to the celebration. I don't even remember how I saw this or how we found out, but it came to our attention that Dave Boland was going to be hosting a local Stanley Cup parade because we live in the Toronto area and he's from the Toronto area, a little suburb called Mimico, just in and around Etobicoke, again, Toronto suburb. So we found out, we both had flexible bosses and flexible schedules who said, sure, take the day off. We understand you guys are fans. And we thought, great. So we went down early, got a spot, got a great spot near the parade, saw him coming through. ended up being in prime location. He ended up bringing the cup down. People got to wait in line, meet Bolin, take a picture with him, and we ended up getting to kiss the Stanley Cup. So that was a really cool experience that we did not expect to have. We have a picture to prove it. Certainly, won't be kissing it in any other respect. So that was certainly a cool moment to be able to do so. And again, bringing things full circle. I've mentioned on the show that my dad is the reason I'm a Blackhawk fan. So in that line, if I'm not mistaken, we were able to get signed pictures from Boland, and already being sort of in and around the downtown area, my now wife and I jumped on a train, went down to my dad's office for a surprise visit, told him what just happened, and gave him a signed picture of Boland. So everything was really full circle at that point, and blossomed from there as far as the dynasty goes. So to me, it was a perfect year to cover all the bases and what was going to happen next.
This is such a sentimental episode. We're going over the Stanley Cup years, former players. It makes me so sad.
We didn't have a lot to celebrate currently, so I just figured I'd bring us to the point where we could.
Yeah, got to reminisce a bit here.
Yeah, we do.
And speaking of the Stanley,
Watching.
yeah, getting a little bored back there, but he'll still get the job done, I'm sure.
Now, this is the time of year where your goalies earn their checks. So that's why I'm going with goalies. Usually they're the difference maker.
Yeah.
And I am okay with goalies getting the positive attention they deserve, as you know.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
folks, well, there you have it. Another episode of Blackhawks Banter is in the books. We appreciate you tuning in. Friendly reminder to please subscribe, follow, and engage with us across your favorite platforms. And be sure to check out thehockeywriters.com for all of the coverage our talented teams are publishing on a daily basis. Thank you to Greg, Gail, and Brooke for joining me, and we will see you all again next week. Take care, folks.